Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity, and I want to extend a thank you to Jenna Stevens and the rest of the Northeast high school students and staff that made today's TEDx event possible. It's wonderful and exciting to be a part of this today. I'm actually honored to be able to present next to my fellow colleagues in agriculture here today, but yet I'm also humbled. Humbled because, in part, you guys spent your hard-earned money to come listen to me speak. And that's pretty interesting that somebody would want to do that for little old me. But, before I get into that, I want to share with you some of what I do at USDA. I work with federal nutrition assistance programs where I develop purchase specifications for various food products that go to different demographics and folks, one of them most notably being the school lunch program. And I get to work on determining what those specifications are so that little Billy and Sally in the cafeteria can sit down and have a hamburger and not worry about its quality or if it's safe for them to consume. But before I get into all that, I'd like to take a little time to talk about some of my agricultural journey, a few stops I've made along the way, and what drives my livelihood, but more importantly, my life. Enter my son, Ben. And actually, there he is right there. Ben is the reason that I advocate for agriculture. He sees me working on the farm, whether it be with cattle or out in the field or working in the shop, or he sees his mother as a practicing veterinarian helping sick animals get better. Regardless, he's going to see these activities, he's going to see these passions from his mom and dad, and he's going to carry them with him in his life moving forward into his agriculture. And by the way, this picture here is something I'm very proud of, and actually it dovetails into the theme of this TEDx event, the art, the agriculture, and the advocacy. Because my wife, Sky, who's right here, she took this picture, and it's an impromptu photo of Ben and I deciding a chore strategy. Who's going to grain the cows and who's going to pitch some manure. And as you can see by who's holding the shovel, how that conversation went. But really, really proud of this, particularly because Sky, my wife, actually submitted this photo in a I Am a Cattleman photo contest with the State Cattlemen's Association. And after several rounds of voting, it was chosen to don the October 2016 cover of the Iowa Cattlemen's Magazine. So really proud of that. You know, my agricultural journey started obviously as an Iowa farm boy. And I'm sure some of you can assimilate to this, but my agricultural world was corn, soybeans, hogs, and cattle. But, you know, I never thought it would lead to a career with USDA. Heck, I thought that the closest I would get to USDA was making the trek to the Farm Service Agency down by Farm and Fleet in Davenport to pick up some paperwork or sign some documents for my dad. But during my time with USDA, I've actually had some great experiences. You know, I've never thought that I'd be able to develop carcass and live animal grade standards for beef, pork, lamb, and veal, and teach them to fellow colleagues or to children in 4-H or FFA. I never thought that I would be making the trek down to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta and presenting some of my research to the scientists there on food safety and meat products. I never thought that I would go to Puerto Rico to work with contractors there in managing different food commodities for purchase activities. I never thought I'd take a trip across the pond and visit Serbia and work with the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe to provide cutting demonstrations for their Ministry of Agriculture. And I never thought that I would ever have the opportunity to have a picture taken with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. It's definitely something that I can check off my bucket list. But within the USDA, I work for the Agricultural Marketing Service. And the Agricultural Marketing Service is charged with the fair and efficient marketing of agricultural commodities, both domestically and internationally. It's broken down into various program areas that you see here in front of you. They could be commodity-based, or they could be activity-based. There's cotton and tobacco, fruits and vegetables, dairy products. There's also the task-oriented ones like fair marketing and trade practices, or there's marketing and transportation. There's also federal grain inspection, or there's different areas that focus on farmers markets or the people's garden. But the program area that I work in is the Livestock, Poultry, and Seed program. And through that program, I work specifically with our commodity purchasing arm of that agency to purchase USDA Foods. So what type of foods does AMS purchase for USDA Foods? Well, I offer you this bar chart here that kind of just shows you a 50,000-foot view, if you will, of the different types of commodities. There's approximately 1.6 billion pounds, or last year there was approximately 1.6 billion pounds of fruits and vegetables that were procured, about 260 million pounds of dairy products, and about 580 million pounds of meat, poultry, and egg commodities. And that equates all to about $2.2 billion of commodities purchased that go to various federal nutrition assistance programs. So who are the recipients of these items? They cover a broad demographic. I offer you this pie chart here that kind of breaks it down, and I'll go through these. The first is the FDPIR, or the Food Distribution Program for Indian Reservations, where we work with Native American entities on helping them with different foodstuffs that they require. Those could include like bison or lamb. There's the Commodity Supplemental Purchase Program, Commodity Supplemental Foods Purchase Program. This is an area where we work with individual households and maybe those entities that might need some extra assistance, both economically but also nutritionally. There's TFAP, or the Emergency Food Assistance Program. And this activity comes into play when there's natural disasters or national emergencies. Take, for example, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. But probably the largest purchase program area is child nutrition programs. And this comprises about 70% of the purchase activities, and it includes the National School Lunch Program. Under the National School Lunch Program, there are approximately 31 million children served on an annual basis, which includes about 100,000 nonprofit institutions and schools. So beyond the bar chart that I showed you earlier, what type of commodities specifically are procured in USDA Foods? Well, let's just say the pantry is stocked and it is diverse. I hinted at the 1.6 billion pounds of fruits and vegetables. They come in any orientation, any type of fruit or vegetable, packaging sizes, even individual fruit cups, all the way to bulk tomatoes, whatever you would like. There are various legumes and beans, rices, grains of that nature. There's also several different types of dairy products, the milk, cheeses, of course, but also yogurts. There's egg products, which could be whole shell eggs or maybe liquid pasteurized eggs. We even dive into different aquatic foods. We will purchase pollock or catfish or salmon for various program activities. We'll even look at different poultry items, which could include an 8-piece cut-up chicken or maybe a turkey deli roll for sandwiches. We even purchase flours and starches or vegetable oils. But the one that I would really like to focus in on today for this talk is ground beef, the little commodity right there in the center bottom of the slide. This is a high-profile commodity that, depending on circumstances, can garner either very favorable or very negative press. But nonetheless, it's a very high-profile premier item that I'd like to discuss. To put it in perspective, on a national basis, ground beef in general consists of about 7 billion tons in the food service and retail arenas nationally. That is a lot of hamburger. So what kind of ground beef products are purchased by AMS for USDA Foods? Well, there's about 10 of them. Doesn't seem like a lot, but there is a lot that goes into it. They're usually hover around a couple different lean points. The normal is about 85% lean. There are some others that are about 95% lean. Also, grind sizes come into consideration. There's usually a coarse ground beef or a fine ground beef, depending on the end user application. If it's a coarse ground, it could go to further processing to make into other types of commodities for the children, or it could go to them in a fine ground form, and the lunch ladies or folks working in the back of the kitchen can manufacture it and cook it to whatever their meal requirements are for that week. There's also different chub sizes or patties. If they want a 10-pound log or a 1-pound log for maybe the individual household, or there's patties for that hamburger that, remember, little Billy and Sally are going to have in the lunchroom. Portion sizes and nutritional considerations also come into play when you're thinking about meal pattern requirements from the Food Nutrition Service, or if you're doing menu planning and want to get the appropriate crediting for nutrition standards in the lunchroom. So it's pretty easy to make these 10 ground beef products, right? Not much to it. You have the cattle over here, you have the harvest and fabrication facility here, and then you have the distribution and recipients over here. Seems pretty cut and dry, but actually it's not. There's a lot that goes into it. That's where I come into play. I hinted at earlier about the gate to plate specifications that I put forth for making sure that that ground beef is what we want it to be for the end recipients, the students in the school. And there's various specification requirements that cover the gamut. We start with the live animal. We worry about is it of domestic origin? Is it being treated humanely? Its welfare. We worry about time and temperature controls in the fabrication facility. You know, keep it cold, keep it moving, keep it fresh. We worry about, microbiological testing, looking into whether or not there's bacteria like Salmonella or E. coli 0157H7 that may be tainting that product. We look at metal detection or objection materials. Is there any extraneous product that should not be in there? We even look at the packaging and the labeling of the packages. We even give consideration to the delivery units. How big should the semi-truck be, and should there be 40,000 pounds on that truck to get to that distribution center so that that area and that locale for the school districts that they serve has the right amount of product for them at any given time? It runs the gamut of all the things that goes into producing ground beef for our school children. But why do we do all that? And the short answer is we do it to define quality. And some of you are thinking, well, quality, I know what quality is. It's whatever's the best, right? Well, you're partially right, but when I think of quality, I think of whatever meets regulatory requirements while delighting the customer. If the customer is delighted, that means that you've provided them with the level of quality that they expected. Think of it like a Ford Taurus versus a Cadillac. Both are good quality vehicles, but do you need to have a Cadillac to drive 75 miles one way to work every day? It doesn't necessarily meet the need, but the Taurus is probably a better choice for that circumstance because that's what's going to delight the customer given the circumstance. It's the same thing with the ground beef or the hamburger that's going into schools. We've taken the research and decided, okay, these are the things, these are the parameters from gate to plate that we need to focus in on so that those end users are going to be pleased. But what's more important than quality? And I'll save you the wonder, it's right there, food safety. Food safety is paramount. That should always be at the forefront of everybody's mind, particularly when it comes to food products. You know, you can have this high quality hamburger or whatever commodity it is, but if it has a piece or a flake of metal in it, or it is riddled with E. coli, does it really matter if it tastes good? No, because one thing that we need to focus on is protecting that next generation of agriculture, and this one little area where I can do that. How do we do that? Well, within AMS and these purchase programs, we employ a lot of different on-site capability assessments or different audits, whether it be at the feedlots, at the harvest facility, at the fabrication facility, or even downstream at the distribution centers, or even at the recipient locale. We also look at statistical process control, which I always like to call that's the voice of the process. We measure things like fat content, or again, that microbiological load that could be in the product, and we measure that over time to see if that process is appropriately fabricating against our processes, and if not, we can take action to make sure that contractor is doing the right things right, or if they're not, we can take punitive action. Another area that we started using recently is the use of dashboards, kind of like your speedometer or tachometer in the car. We've developed some dashboards where we can monitor what's going on with different attributes in a process of manufacturing ground beef so that I can make real-time decisions about performance and, again, take that action if necessary. But why do we do all this again? Remember, I hinted at it earlier. It's for little Billy and Sally. And it's one thing that I've learned in the, I think, 12 years that I've been writing these specifications and working in school lunch program, is that you don't mess with people's kids, particularly when it comes to food safety. That is paramount and always should be. So I ask you, is the burger better? I think it is a small area, a small corner of agriculture where I feel I truly am making a difference. You know, and I am building a better burger. And I'm doing it for my son Ben, or Billy and Sally in the school cafeteria. That is to say, I'm doing it for the next generation of agriculture, so that they may understand its far reach. You know, the far reach of agriculture, that's kind of interesting. You know, before I hinted at, me being the typical Iowa farm boy, and my basis for agriculture was that corn, soybeans, hogs, and cattle. And it is those things, but it's much, much more. You know, it's the farming and ranching. It's also food science. It's nutrition. It's chemistry. It's biology. It's agronomy, marketing, sales, pharmaceuticals, human and animal. The list goes on and on. You could write a thesis about how to define agriculture, and that's actually pretty cool if you think about it. But I actually think our friends at Farm Bureau summarized the far reach of agriculture best. Last year at the Iowa State Fair, we visited their booth, and I was kind of taken aback and excited when I saw the shirts that the workers at the booth were wearing. And simply put, it just said, "Without farmers, it's just a stick." And to me, I'm sorry I didn't have a hamburger on it, that would have been better. But this is a really simply put way to say, hey, agriculture is everywhere, it's everything. Like I said, it's simply put and highly profound. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.